Hello and welcome to Satish Jha show. Today Rahul Gandhi said something very pertinent, and even I had not thought of it in that particular context. And the moment was talking about Dalits, the truth of Dalit in India. I've always wondered since my childhood, why is it that we treat a community the way we do? I read about the untouchability syndrome, shall we call it, when I was a teenager. I read about Gandhi's views on that. I saw that in my villages, I saw that in my cities, wherever I lived. It was always mind-boggling that why is it that we treat a whole community like the untouchables? Then, of course, I saw the kind of work we gave them, the menial work given to them, and the division our society had, the segregation, that we normalized, we accepted that as a law of nature. And that's what my villagers, my parents, my family, they all told us. And then I was a little older, and suddenly I found I was a 20-something editor of a magazine from Times of India group, which allowed me to have some privileges, like suddenly being invited to a panel where India's foreign minister happened to be there as well, talking about apartheid. And I recall it was a college of Delhi University, and the foreign minister talked about apartheid in South African context. And I couldn't stop saying, apartheid is right here, within our country, everywhere around us. We practice it every day. And that was because we had untouchables, we had Dalits. Then we saw the movement of Dalits and how Dalit consciousness had been brought to the fore. And yet, after Ambedkar and his leading the constitutional committee and launching it for the nation in 1950. Till date, Dalits are treated as Dalits. Dalits are the downtrodden. Dalits are the untouchables. Dalits are all kinds of communities which have not been treated as a regular citizen, regular human being, worthy of same respect as we give to our own society, own family members and others. We accept when they succeed, but we don't accept them until they succeed. Even after they succeed, we are hesitatingly including them in our conversations. And if we do so because anything else may not look appropriate or right. Not because we believe in it, or so it seems. So when Rahul Gandhi began talking about his privileges as Rahul Gandhi and the love and affection he got, how he got beaten up as well, which taught him the idea of that nation wanted to teach him some lessons, wanted to learn. He spoke from his heart, as he always does. He's not a great speaker, but he has started capturing the imagination of people, common people, because they are looking for someone who comes with a clean heart. And Rahul Gandhi, whatever one can say about his political skills, he is a clean heart. He is a good heart. There is no doubt on that. And we can give any names that 2 rupee trolls keep calling him, or the way BJP has created a perception around him. We shouldn't forget that perceptions are far more powerful than reality when it comes to human lives, societies, nations, and diplomacy and politics. It's more about perceptions that we have. Reality means very little compared to the power of perception. Because who knows reality? It's too complex. It's easy to accept something which we can live with. And that's what the power of perception is. And the politicians and those who end up leading any group whatsoever, they understand the craft of that, the art of that. And better the artist, more successful they become. So power of perception is what's critical to being in politics, and there the power of perception is changing the way people see Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi is the most recognized name outside of Modi in the country. He was the most recognized name before Modi came on board. But Modi, the brand Modi, the way Modi branded himself, that was an excellence in branding, so to say. Whatever his team did, whatever his leadership allowed him to manage, he branded himself so well that today he stands out as an exceptional brand in the country. But next to him, there's a human being. It's no one other than Rahul Gandhi, whose heart bleeds for the country, and everybody sees that. So he basically said, what kind of nation we are? We are the only one nation on the planet that practices untouchability, that practices apartheid not at the level of state, at the level of heart of every citizen. Where it remains a word, Dalit is a word that we accept, and Dalit accept themselves as Dalit as well. Because to form an association, to form the bond that will bring them together, they had to accept a word, and they accepted the word Dalit. I don't think those who came from the ordained, the higher castes, so to say, they called them Dalit. They began calling themselves Dalit first. Initially, Achut was the word, and Achut means untouchable. So that is the tragedy of a nation of 140 crore or 1.4 billion people, that we still have a large section of our society we call untouchable. They may not be untouchable in the cities, urban areas, but they are in the villages. They may be untouchable in parts of urban areas, not all of it. But they are not, they are no better than towards the end of slavery in America, the way America treated the people of color. Not much better than that. Yes, violence may have come down a little bit, but it hasn't disappeared. So what Rahul Gandhi was trying to say is, we pet a dog, but we run away from humans. We pet our horses, we run away from humans. We like pets, but we don't like humans. And this is not a small number. If you see that Mayawati got 75 lakh votes in Uttar Pradesh, and she represents a party that she calls the Party of Dalits. Now, Rahul Gandhi, of course, said that Mayawati could have become the chief minister had she decided to join hands with other parties. She chose not to. And but still got 75 lakh votes. Had Mayawati and Congress combined, is what is possible that SP-BSP Congress alliance could have been running the government in UP. But that didn't happen. Because ultimately, the reason there was that she's under the pressure of CBI and ED, because all the leaders that we have, they have to do things all the time for a variety of reasons, which may not be strictly according to the process, according to law, and then they become victims of the same process. And no one knows better than current government how to use those levers to tame the opposition. But the issue is basically that Dalit is a major crisis in the country, in the sense that almost half the humanity has been set aside as untouchables, more or less. They may not be strictly untouchable, but they're treated not much differently from that. And who guarantees that? Constitution guarantees that there is no untouchability. But Constitution has to have institutions, and that's what Rahul Gandhi alluded to. That we have the Constitution, but Constitution doesn't manage to live up to its expectations, because institutions supporting it, they have been corrupted, they have been marginalized, they have been weakened. So one of the major pillars of democracy is institution building and respecting them and having a process. And I've said a few times before that just building an institution will not guarantee that they will stand the test of time or even the promise they are established with, because institution requires multiple layers of observing how it functions, monitoring, evaluation, investigation, and consequences of anything that is not done the right way. And that should go on as a regular process, but it doesn't happen that way. It only happens in exceptions. So what is norm when that happens in exceptions? Institutions get weakened. Now, institution of CBI and ED and many other intelligence bureaus and other bodies of investigation or law enforcement, if they functioned independently with people who soar to the Constitution and they worked to the spirit of the Constitution, life will be very different. But we are all humans. We are all fallible. But fallibility is a much larger part of the circle that defines us, rather than our skills, rather than our commitments and values. And that's where that quotient, the fallibility quotient, has become so large that we, instead of progressing, we have chosen a path of basically doddering. And past 8 years have shown that whatever we had achieved in the previous 67, we started sliding down. The reason is beyond just the question of Dalit. But Dalit is a very, very critical and embarrassing and shameful aspect of our democracy or nation as such, that we allow anyone, even one citizen, to be treated as less than another. That is something no democracy should have to endure. But our leaders do talk about these issues, but they never take the next step, next necessary step of ensuring that no one within their sight is ever treated differently from the way Constitution wants us to do. The challenge is that when I look at all these people, those who make decisions, those who lead our nation, they go by creating perceptions. They look at what is possible. We say politics is art of the possible. So they look at the possibilities and work to that. They don't work to the values or the spirit of the Constitution. They look for acquiring power to self-enrichment or gain of those who get them where they are. So either they work for themselves or they work for those who brought them there. They don't work for the Constitution. So Rahul Gandhi is speaking from his heart. He talked about his stories, talked about his debt to the country, and how mindful he is of that. So I remember now why he said 15 years back, it's good for us to get out of the power system and feel the heat of the remaining outside the power and get back to it when we're readier to be really in power, when we understand our country. So, but he oftentimes he sounds like he's discovering India all the time. But when will he get ready? Will he be a constant student without really taking the reins of the government? So that question he has to answer himself. But the fact that he has taken up this issue of Dalit and their truth, how they have been made so different from every other citizen, that question, I hope he continues to keep in forefront, because that will probably create a greater, you can say, community of forces that may propel Congress back into the mainstream. So hopefully he's picking up the right issues. Hopefully he will figure out how to communicate them. But only challenge is he is well past 50 now. He's no longer a student. He still talks like a very, very good student, who's a sincere student. He doesn't sound like the best examinee yet. He sounds like a very well-meaning student, someone who's sincere about the whole story. On sincerity, he gets 100 on 100. In politics, he has to go beyond sincerity. And I hope he finds that. And I hope we are looking forward to how he fares on that path. With that, look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye.